Welcome in to News and Views with Tom Lamprecht. The stories you've heard and the ones you need to hear.
Two big final decisions by the Supreme Court today.
Gas prices are up because of Russia.
It is the deadliest migrant smuggling incident on U.S. soil. And it's on President Biden's watch.
His response with 50 dead bodies in his state is to go straight to politics.
There's no such thing as a quick win. I'm out of here.
Your life, your values, your voice. This is News and Views with Tom Lamprecht on Talk 96.3 and 103.7.
All right, welcome in. It is News and Views for a Thursday. If we have time, we got a full hour. If we have time, we'll play political trivia. Got a little Independence Day question for you. Lots to talk about this hour, and we're looking forward to having Charlie Hurt on with us, who will be here at about 5:20. This is a huge story, though, out of the United States Supreme Court. You're not going to hear this on a lot of your mainstream media. But the United States Supreme Court agreed without comment today to take up a dispute involving North Carolina election maps. Justices will consider the case Moore versus Harper after the court returns from the summer break. Justices will decide whether a state's judicial branch may nullify the regulations governing the manner of holding elections for senators and representatives prescribed by the legislature thereof, and replace them with regulations of the state courts' own devising based upon vague state constitutional provisions purportedly vested the state judiciary with power to prescribe whatever rules it deems appropriate to ensure fair and free elections, according to the petition the North Carolina legislative leaders submitted to the nation's highest court. Let me just break that down into layman's language. The Constitution says the election laws will be put forth and by the state legislature, and that's what we will follow, period. Well, as you know, listening to this program, and if you've not had your head in the sand over the last few years, you know that the court system here in the state of North Carolina, the North Carolina state courts, primarily the Supreme Court, has gotten itself involved in saying, no, we're going to rule your maps unconstitutional. They're not fair for the voter. It's a pretty cut and dry, as Benny and I see it, it's pretty cut and dry. That belongs to the legislature, and the judiciary has no say in what is put out, even if it appears to be very unfair and unkind, which I'm not saying any of the maps were, but my gosh, if they were unfair and unkind, why were we not going back and throwing out the Mel Watt map back from I guess it was back in the 80s and early 90s when Mel Watt's congressional district ran up I-85 from Charlotte all the way to Durham. I mean, it looked like a snake. You talk about gerrymander. Anyway, I didn't think that the Supreme Court would take up this case. Now, earlier in the spring, the state legislature filed a petition on March the 17th asking the Supreme Court to take the case. They asked for the Supreme Court rejected what was called an emergency petition that could have blocked the current map, and basically they came back and said it's too close to the election. We're not going to get involved in it. A lot of people thought that they wouldn't get involved because oftentimes you do not have federal courts getting involved in state court matters. But indeed, Judge Kavanaugh indicated he agreed with dissenting justices when they didn't get involved in this emergency petition. Samuel Alito, Neil Gorsuch, and Clarence Thomas did want to get involved. It takes 4 justices to hear a case. Kavanaugh apparently agreed with the other 3. They're going to take the case. It'll be sometime after their summer break. It appears that since they've already announced it, this case will be heard fairly early in their next session in terms of oral arguments. Now, we probably, as in most situations, it'll probably be almost a year from now before we actually have a decision by the Supreme Court on this case. But the fact that they're picking it up, this is huge news, good news.
Yeah, you would think the fact that they're taking it up that it bodes well for the Republican-led legislature. But at the same time, I mean, they could say, well, we need to interject because we need to decide, really who has the authority. But it's clear, as Speaker Moore said, the United States Constitution gives the General Assembly the authority to draw districts. And clearly the state Supreme Court haven't done what they're supposed to do just for purely partisan reasons.
Yes.
Because there's nowhere that says that, hey, you can elect a special master, as they call it, all over the country. This is happening. And it's basically the same people that are pushing these lawsuits all over the country, Mark Elias
exactly.
and his group of cronies. But that's not in the Constitution, that you can bypass the General Assembly, the duly elected members of Congress of each state. So, I mean, I think the Supreme Court is taking this up. I think it's going to bode well for Republicans personally.
I mean, and we have the
Just
Supreme
taking it
Court. And there's some other opinions that were released today, rulings that were released. One good one excellent one with the EPA, and another one dealing with immigration that is a disappointment. But by and large, you have a Supreme Court now that is very much an originalist Supreme Court. They're following the Constitution based on the term originalist. It's based on what they think the writers and framers of the Constitution meant when they put the Constitution together. And again, this is very, very positive news. I tend to agree with you. I think the very fact that they have said that they're going to hear this case bodes well. Now, the question is, will Amy Coney Barrett go along with the other four? What will John Roberts do? It'll be interesting to see. I have more hope in Amy Coney Barrett than I do in John Roberts. We'll see where it goes. Back in March, though, Amy Coney Barrett was still sort of getting her feet wet. You didn't hear a lot from her. It'd be interesting if that happened. What happened back in March happened today. Would she have been more involved and taking up the case?
Well, I think she is fully injected in the Supreme Court now. So I think she won't hold back.
She's running full stride. Absolutely. Yeah. Again, we've got a great program lined up for you. We're going to be joined by Charlie Hurt in a little bit, but now, because it is Concert on the Common night. Yeah, a little Chicago. Mark Miller's with us. Hey, Mark, what's going on?
Hey, what's going on, Tom? I don't know if you can hear it behind me. It's pretty loud, and I'm getting a little bit far away so I can at least hear you. But Saturday in the Park is blasted right now. They are doing a little sound check action, and it sounds fantastic. Chicago has so many different sounds, right? From when they started in the 60s, 70s, into the 80s, sort of got into that sort of power ballad, heavy synth stuff. We've got a horn section over here. You're going to hear everything from every era, and it's going to be absolutely fantastic. And it's going to be absolutely free, too, by the way.
There you go. Now, this was a rescheduled concert. Originally, it was supposed to happen. I guess this is the first concert of the year, wasn't it? And it got delayed because of bad weather?
The bad weather canceled it. And that's a tough way to start out the year. Like, oh, no, what's going to happen? It's going to be one of those years. We have been blessed with beautiful weather ever since that show, and we are certainly blessed with it tonight. It's a little on the warm side, but you pick a spot that's in the shade. You grab a frosty beverage from our friends at the Junior League of Greenville. They are about to start selling those in about 10, 15 minutes or so, and there's plenty of food up the hill here with food trucks galore. So there's just so much for you to enjoy today. And a great scene as our final concert on the Common gets underway with Chicago Rewired around 6 o'clock.
Sounds good. So grab your lawn chair, grab a blanket, and come on down to the Greenville Town Common. This is a freebie, but boy, it is worth the trek. It's worth finding a parking space and putting on your walking shoes, your tennis shoes, going down to the Town Common and enjoy some great music.
These guys are good.
Who didn't like Chicago? Who did not like Chicago? So,
they've got so much, such a varied catalog, as we were talking about before. you're bound to like one era of Chicago if you don't like them all. So there's going to be something for everyone tonight. And this is another one of those bands that, appears in other spots where you have to pay a significant amount of money to get into the show.
Oh, yeah.
That is the case today.
What is your favorite Chicago song?
Oof.
Mine is one that a lot of people don't remember, Old Days. I loved Old Days.
Yeah. I like sort of the older, sort of the 25 or 6 to 4, Stronger Every Day, those times.
Yeah.
Which is, getting a little workout here in the sound check as we speak. I'm more privy to the older stuff than I am to the 80s stuff. But the 80s stuff is such huge hits, and we play them all the time on our station.
All right. Mark Miller calling in from the Greenville Town Common, going down to see Mark and go down and see Chicago Rewired. Free, starting at 6 o'clock. We've got food, we've got beverages, and we got music. Thanks, Mark.
Sounds good, man. Talk to you later.
Bye-bye. Let's go ahead and take a break. When we come back, if we can get all the wires crossed and everybody plugged in, we'll be joined by Charlie Hurt. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Got a trade? Then get to Greenville Toyota. We're out to buy 500 local trades, and we'll buy you out with our best offer. Or trade in for a new Toyota and get our Greenville Advantage with no-cost lifetime maintenance and more. Don't miss the trade buyout at Greenville Toyota.
Hey, we're at Maribella's in Greenville, the new location of Maribella's on Fire Tower Road. If you haven't been to this place yet, let me tell you, you are missing out. I want to introduce my friends from Maribella's. I've got Sal, Massimo, and Pietro here. These guys are awesome. Not only do they make great food, they do a lot of things for the community, which we're going to be talking about. But Sal, let's start with you. Let's talk about the new location of Maribella's on Fire Tower Road. I'm a regular here. I love it. You guys call it Old World Pizza. Tell us what's different about your pizza.
Well, we got two kinds of pizzas. We have the traditional, American style, and then we have the Old World Pizza, which is made with fresh mozzarella, and the way they do it in Italy.
Massimo, when you talk about doing this food right, it's authentic. And when I talk about authentic, you grew up in Italy, so you grew up with this food. You know how to make it.
Yeah, because we grew up in Italy, we know the ingredient, and everything we do from scratch. And the right ingredient it's been hard for us to bring over here. Now finally we can get the right ingredient to make a right pizza.
All right, now I'm going to talk to my friend Pietro here at Maribella's. He's got the Nino's shirt on today. We're going to talk about Nino's, which is another great dining experience, upscale dining experience, on another segment upcoming. But Pietro, let's talk about Maribella's. For people who've never been to Maribella's, what's the experience going to be like when they come here? Not only pizzas, but pastas, salads, sandwiches, you got it all.
Yes, we do. We have new sandwiches that we put in this new location, and we're going to spread it to the other locations.
The guys here at Maribella's have won national pizza competitions, so you know it's good. Thanks to Sal, Massimo, and Pietro. Folks, do yourself a favor. Come to the new Maribella's here on Fire Tower Road in Greenville, or Maribella's on Greenville Boulevard, or Maribella's in Washington on Carolina Avenue. Also, don't forget upscale dining at Nino's on Red Banks Road.
It pays to pre-order at Greenville Toyota. Camrys, Corollas, Tundras, RAV4s, Highlanders, and more are on the way. Pre-order yours today. Plus, get more for your trade. It pays to pre-order at Greenville Toyota.
Other restaurants claim their food is fresh and fast, but are they friendly? At Moore's, you're treated like family the minute you walk into their doors. With locations in Winterville, New Bern, Swansboro, Morehead City, and Jacksonville. We've been practicing what we preach since 1945. At Moore's, our barbecue is slow cooked and smoked over real wood daily until it's so tender it's falling off the bone. Combined with our fresh chicken, cooked-to-order seafood, and homemade fixins, we're sure you'll agree. If it's not Moore's, it's less.
Gas prices, rising costs, your groceries.
Everything is
massive inflation, way up,
going through the roof.
It's outrageous.
Hold on to your wallet.
What's coming through your speaker?
Information, the latest news and updates,
or your smart device.
The conversation right now.
This is complete insanity.
It's free.
There's a lot going on right now.
We have to understand what that means.
Listen on the TuneIn Radio app and Talk 96.3 and 103.7.
Welcome back in News and views for a Thursday. Charlie Hurt is the opinion editor and a columnist for the Washington Times, often seen as a Fox News contributor on the cable network's signature evening news roundtable. Charlie is in his 20-year career, has worked his way up from a beat reporter for the Detroit News and the Washington correspondent for the Charlotte Observer right here in North Carolina before joining the Washington Times in 2003. And we are privileged to have Charles Hurt with us right now on the telephone. Charlie, welcome in.
Great to be with you guys.
Hey, first question for you. This is a softball. In your former life, were you a comedy writer? I was.
So, this is
go ahead.
This is the great thing about and I thought it was going to end with Trump. This is the great thing about political news these days. If you don't have a sense of humor, you're going to be miserable. Second of all, you're missing, I think, just about all of it. The problem is that with Trump, so much of it was intentionally funny or funny in like a genuinely funny way. Now it's gotten with Biden, it's gotten to the point where it's like really darkly, it's funny, but it's really dark. It's creepy funny.
Well, and there's so much irony in what liberals do. Yeah. One week they can't define a woman, and the next week they're all upset because women are being harassed.
Yeah, and suddenly, now with the Roe v. Wade decision coming down, they've finally rediscovered what it means to be a woman. But now, it's insane. Did you see some of these protests where these women are jumping out of their cars, they're running around, they're taking their shirts off, and it's like, please just put your shirt back on. Please, I'll do anything. Take my coat, and it's brought old timey chivalry back among men, because I take my suit jacket off and I want to put it on them, like they're cold or something like that, like we're out ice skating or something like that, and you want to just anything, just put your shirt back on.
Well, I noticed in your op-ed that came out today, look out, the abortion election is coming, I noticed that you do not think the sex strike has a big chance of winning.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be real successful. You have to, if you want to withhold something, you have to withhold something that
people want.
That people want. And I'm thinking that everybody that is a victim of this sex strike is like, thank God.
Yeah, I don't think
this is like our lucky day.
Yeah, Elizabeth Warren threatening a sex strike is not going to be.
Yeah, that's not going to move the needle, as they say.
Yeah. Well, let me get a little more serious with you. With the exception of today's ruling on the Remain in Mexico policy, and I haven't read the opinion yet, we've had a pretty impressive couple of weeks of rulings by SCOTUS. My question is, do you think this is a genuine paradigm shift in our country's direction, a reversal of the last 50 years of judicial activism, or is this an anomaly, a blip on the screen, and we're going to continue down the Marxist road?
So I think without a doubt, obviously there's still going to be pressures to move us down the Marxist road because, we've got two branches of government that are completely out of control. But I think that this is an absolute, this is the most consequential. I told my children, who are all kind of teenagers in that age, I've sort of, begged each one of them to pay careful attention to this stuff, read all the stuff that they can, but also kind of remember where you were when Roe v. Wade got struck down. Because I really do believe this. I think that it will prove to be the most consequential court decision of their lifetimes. And because it is part of a much larger shift away from this idea from this judicial activism. And this has been a fight that has been going on. I remember from, covering the judicial wars when George W. Bush was trying to get judges on the court, on the federal bench, on the lower bench, and then obviously with his effort to get, successful effort to get John Roberts as Chief Justice, and then Sam Alito. I remember covering those wars, and the Democrats pulled out all the stops. They would do everything anything they could to stop that. And because they realized that their only hope to get a lot of this stuff, their craziest parts of their agenda, such as a free-for-all abortion guaranteed in the Constitution, the only way to do that was to do it through the courts. And so yeah, we're absolutely seeing a huge shift. And obviously George W. Bush, it's easy to look at this through a lens of Republicans and Democrats, and certainly Democrats are hideous about the people they put on the bench. They're all activists. They don't care about the law. They make stuff up. They don't believe that the Constitution says what it means or means what it says. Republicans are better about it. But even George W. Bush, let's not forget, George W. Bush put Sam Alito on the court. But if he had had his way, he would have put his secretary, Harriet Miers, on the court instead of Justice Alito. We don't know. We have no idea. I mean, we had a pretty good sense how Alito would rule in a case like this based on his allegiance to the Constitution. We had no idea about Harriet Miers. And so my only point here is that when you fast forward to today and you look back, the only Republican who is batting 1,000 at putting justices on the Supreme Court who believe that the Constitution says what it means and means what it says is Donald J. Trump.
Yeah.
And he had never nominated anybody to the federal bench in his life before he decided to run for president in 2016 and won and did more to restore the federal judiciary than any president in history. And I think that we should all be saying the deepest prayer of thanks for his ability to do that, and then people around him who helped him as well.
Well, and I was going to say, I think that was from your op-ed from a week ago where you pointed out the fact that just about every other president just sort of says, who's my buddy? Who do I feel like nominating? Donald Trump had the honesty to admit, I really haven't done this before. I'm going to go to organizations like the Heritage Foundation and other organizations and get their recommendations. And you're right. He's 3 for 3.
Yeah, and a person, one of the unsung heroes of all of this is a man named Leonard Leo at the Federalist Society, who has devoted his life. He was a friend of Justice Scalia and has devoted his life to this idea that justices, we have no court if we don't have justices who believe that the Constitution means what the Constitution says. And if you want to change it, by the way, you're free to change it. Go change it if you have a problem with it. We've changed it dozens of times in our history. It's difficult to change, but you can amend it. And if you want to amend it, i.e. insert a guaranteed right to abortion, have at it. Go for it. Do that if you want, but do it the proper way.
Exactly.
They don't want to do that. They want to do it the cheap way. They want to do it the dishonest way. They want to do it by just making stuff up. I think a big mistake that Democrats have always made is that they have always believed that Roe v. Wade, our arguments against Roe v. Wade, have always been strictly a religious argument. And my personal profound opposition to abortion of any sort is probably more based in a belief that God creates life and it's not our position to.
It's a moral, religious argument. Yeah.
Yeah, it's certainly a moral issue, and but what they've dismissed is that there's a huge legal argument, and the legal argument is the reason that this got overturned. Is that even Ruth Bader Ginsburg and many other people, judges who believe in that abortion should be legal, could not contain their disdain for the ruling in Roe v. Wade. It was a laugher. It was ridiculous, and they knew it was ridiculous. And it was that legal argument that overturned Roe v. Wade. It was not the religious argument. And all of these, you talk to any of these Democrats today, and they all claim that it was just a religious thing. Well, it wasn't a religious thing. It was a legal thing.
Hey, Charlie, this is Benny. Thank you for joining us today, by the way.
Thanks for having me. Great to see you again.
Yeah,
talk to you again.
Sure. Back to your Washington Times article today, and of course we were laughing about it because it was entertaining, certainly entertaining and comical, but it really had some smart political points, I think, in it as well. And one, I mean, you mentioned that if abortion is such a great issue for Democrats to run on, then why have they fought so hard for 50 years to keep abortion out of the political elections? Why hand such an effective political issue over to the courts and out of the hands of the voters? So, I mean, what do you think? Personally, I don't think the Democrats have much to run on this fall or the next 2 years. Do you think the abortion issue will be an election issue at all in the elections coming up?
I have enough political humility, especially after all that we've seen over the past 5 years, to say I don't know. We'll find out, and quite frankly, I'm eager to find out. And by the way, if Republicans pay a price, if conservatives pay a price, but get this done, I don't care. I'm willing to pay a price to get this done. This was that important. But my hunch is that it's probably that it's not a good political issue for Democrats. And that they know it's not a good political issue for Democrats because, let's not forget, there is no horrifying situation that Democrats are not willing to exploit in order to help them their political fortunes. And every time there's some horrifying shooting anywhere in the country, Democrats exploit it for their political gain. So we know that there's nothing they won't exploit to their advantage. And since we know that's the case, why haven't they over the past 50 years exploited this issue if it's such a great winner? I think we're going to find out it's not a great winner. Obviously, people are going to vote. I'm talking about a political winner for Democrats.
Right.
They're going to vote about the economy, which is in the dump, and they're going to vote on all the normal things, gas prices, all the normal things that people tend to vote on. The sad thing about this, though, and again, this comes back to Donald Trump, because Donald Trump was the guy for all of his, the things that people don't like about him, and he's not a politically correct guy, and he's not a politically smooth guy necessarily.
That's why we like him.
But he called, yeah, no, exactly. And but I get why some people don't for that reason. But he was the first guy to come along and call the Democrats on their stuff.
Right.
And he said, and for so long, I think Republicans listened to the threats Democrats made about, for example, about abortion, and they were terrified that abortion really would be this thing that would destroy, just like with illegal immigration. How long have we listened to Democrats talk about how that Hispanics voters will not vote for you if you believe in a secure border? Well, that's been blown out of the water.
Right,
Look at how much better Donald Trump performed among Hispanic voters than any previous Republican did who wanted to leave open borders. He dropped the hammer on the borders, and it turns out, like all of us, Hispanic voters want to have secure borders. And think about how racist it is for Democrats to sit there and say, "Oh, well, if it's a brown voter, then they don't care about secure borders."
Exactly.
Are you kidding me?
Exactly.
That's the most racist thing I've ever heard.
Bingo. We're talking to Charlie Hurt, opinion editor for the Washington Times and Fox News contributor. Charlie, let me ask you another question. Everybody is going bananas that Roe v. Wade has been reversed, Casey's been reversed. Do you think they're really upset over the abortion part of it or the states' rights part of it? I've got this theory that they're really more upset that through this ruling, basically states' rights have had new breath breathed into them. In fact, I don't know if you saw today, the Supreme Court is going to get involved in a North Carolina judicial map or congressional map case. They're actually going to take that up. Does the state judicial courts have precedent over the state legislature? In our eyes, that's a huge win for conservatism. But are the liberals more upset that they're losing their grip that everything is going to be run from Washington, D.C., and suddenly the states are put back on the stage as lawmakers in each state will now have a say in this matter and in other matters.
Well, this is really interesting, and I think that this is a very sneaky issue that Republicans and conservatives would be very wise to exploit. I think that you are right. I think that certainly the AOCs and the Elizabeth Warrens, the Chuck Schumers of the world, they're terrified of losing their grip on power, centralized power in Washington. But what's really interesting about that is that if you talk to honest-to-God liberals or whatever they are now, progressive, because they're not liberal, they're progressives or whatever they are, when you talk to people who are genuinely have these political views that we don't really share, when you talk to them about local control, that's one thing that actually kind of sparks in their mind. They like the idea of local control. They like the idea of power being migrated out of Washington closer to where people live. This idea of a giant centralized government is only appealing to centralized government people. Sadly, there are a lot of Republicans who have fallen into that trap over the years.
Oh yeah,
but
we got some in North Carolina.
Tremendous. Yeah, I think it's a tremendous avenue of argument. And this 4th of July, when we're all eating hot dogs, if we can afford them, with our family and sitting around the barbecue and talking about stuff, and you have your left-wing buddies and your sisters-in-law or whatever who voted for Joe Biden, talking about moving power closer to where people live is a very good thing, and they usually agree with that.
Right.
The idea that Jeff Bezos and being in bed with Chuck Schumer in Washington to run everything, that doesn't appeal to much of anybody in the country. Actually.
Exactly.
Yeah, Charlie, along this line, I read your book that you wrote in 2019, Double Down, Why America Went All In on Donald Trump and Why We Must Do It Again. Some of these things in your book talked about that, putting the hands in the power of the people. Donald Trump obviously was the outsider, and that's kind of how he got to the White House, and you were one of the first ones, if not one of the first national guys that even was on that train early. We're coming into the next presidential election here coming up, and everyone, Republicans and Democrats, are trying to get Donald Trump to be irrelevant coming up. But let's just say he's not relevant. I think he will be relevant even if he doesn't run, just who he picks or who he sponsors. But who's someone else that you think can maybe pick up where Donald Trump left off in the Republican Party?
Well, obviously, the most obvious person that people talk about is Ron DeSantis, and watching what he has done, he's got that third sense or that sixth sense about how to create issues, and that's what politics is all about. Right? It's all about creating an issue and winning and then having an argument around that issue and then winning that issue. Glenn Youngkin did it in Virginia, talking about education, and he did it brilliantly. And DeSantis does it all the time, and he does it very, very brilliantly. But one of the things that is so great about Trump and again, I get it. There are people that don't like his style. He's a great showman, right, and he's a great entertainer. And when I look around, and obviously I think Republicans have an embarrassment of riches right now in terms of people to pick from. But do any of them have that extraordinary sort of circus appeal that Trump does? And I don't really think they do. And the reason is when he first came on the scene, and people, and I would have to debate Charles Krauthammer, who literally was a childhood idol of mine growing up. reading his column in the Washington Post.
Yeah, he was no fan of Donald Trump.
You know, and he was not a fan of Donald Trump, but he never lost his conservatism, but he didn't like Trump's style. And so I sort of got to thinking that there were, that the opposition to Trump for most people was that they just didn't like his style. And while that was true for Dr. Krauthammer, I eventually came to realize that's not why most people in Washington despise Donald Trump. It has nothing to do with the style. The reason that they hate Donald Trump, both Democrats and Republicans in Washington, is because he's so effective. Mm-hmm. And you don't need to look anywhere beyond this overturning of Roe v. Wade to see how effective he was. That's why they despise him. And so when I sort of wrestle now with this, as Republicans wrestle with this issue about, do people want Trump to run again, or do they want Ron DeSantis to run, or somebody that has the Trump policies minus the lightning rod that is Trump? And I get that struggle, but at the end of the day, I keep coming back to the same thing, which is I don't know that any of these people can be as effective as Trump, including Ron DeSantis, without that innate sense for that makes him so effective. And again, that's why they hate him.
Yeah, and the bottom line is, for 50 years, he got really wealthy being a self-promoter. So don't doubt a guy that made a career out of being a self-promoter not being able to do it on a different stage.
And I'm sorry. Since when was it some sort of sin in politics to be a self-promoter? Are you kidding me?
Point.
They call him a narcissist, and I'm sitting there going, "Oh my God, have you interviewed any of these people in Congress? They're all narcissists."
I haven't met one yet.
Well,
in Washington.
Is that another reason why they're so disliking Donald Trump? Is because, hey, I've been a narcissist in Washington D.C. for 40 years, and you just come in and automatically win. That's not fair.
Yeah, no, he goes in and just embraces it. He does, and he doesn't. He's shameless. He does not have shame about it, which I kind of admire because there's something very honest about it. I would far rather have that than all these people who claim to that
they put on this humble face when you know that's not the truth.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Listen, Charlie, you have been so kind and gracious. We've really kept you over. I don't know how much time Benny said we were going to hold you to, but this has been great. I hope we can get you back on again because this is not only entertaining but also very informative. And let me recommend our listeners go, and I don't know what it is, $10 for the year or something, but go subscribe to the Washington Times if for no other reason to be able to get a hold of your column, which again is very entertaining, but also very, very informative.
Well, I appreciate it very much, and it's been a lot of fun talking to you guys, and let's do it again.
Sounds great.
Look forward to seeing you up when I head up to Virginia again.
Thanks,
Amen,
Charlie.
brother. Look forward to it.
Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Bye-bye. Benny, be right back. By the way, before I go to break, we are off tomorrow and Monday for the Labor Day. I just tossed away the whole summer for the 4th of July holiday. Yeah, I'll get it right. Are you going to do political trivia?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, 561-8255, political trivia when we get back.
Acre Station Meat Farm, along with Lane Angus Beef, bring you Farm to Fork Beef.
Stock your freezers now with affordable beef boxes, just in time for the grilling season.
Farm to Fork Beef brings quality local beef to your family. From your traditional butcher shop, Acre Station Meat Farm. Come on down to Acre Station Meat Farm and find out why we're #1 in fresh cuts and friendly service.
Acre Station Meat Farm, Highway 32 North, Pinetown.
Another rock and roll weekend.
Burgers, better with Pepsi.
You know that moment when you realize your hair color is way past its prime? Or that you need a change and you hope it comes in the form of perfectly sun-kissed highlights? And at Fantastic Sam's, we offer real salon services at real people prices. Our color specialists can do it all. They make grays disappear, layer in subtle highlights, or help you finally find that perfect shade of red. All for real reasonable prices.
The best burgers around. Everyone loves a thick, juicy, and fresh burger. Tiebreakers in Greenville, plus the all-new Tiebreakers in Winterville do real burgers better than anybody. So don't just go to any burger-themed restaurant chain. It's time to break the chain and eat local. Tiebreakers, real burgers at its best.
Everybody loves burgers.
Air Service is back at Pitt Greenville Airport, offering safe, clean facilities and flights from American Airlines. That means the short commute, quicker lines, and better prices that get you where you're going fast and easy. See it for yourself. There's great things inside at Pitt Greenville Airport.
Another rock and roll weekend.
Burgers, better with Pepsi.
107.9 WNCT presents the final Concert on the Common, Thursday, June 30th, with Chicago Rewired. Join us in Uptown Greenville for the Concert on the Common with Chicago Rewired, Thursday, June 30th, with 107.9 WNCT.
Welcome back to News and Views on this Political Trivia Thursday. Don't have any callers yet, but the question is, and if you win this, we got a free oil change from your car from Dave Davis, East Carolina Chrysler Dodge, or Washington Chrysler Dodge Jeep and Ram, a gift certificate for Fit for Life, including 2 free training sessions with a fitness coach, a $20 gift card from Mucho Bueno for lunch or dinner, $20 gift card from Gwendy's Goodies Bakery in Ayden, a gift card to University PC Care, and an Ironwood golf certificate. And our trivia question for today, since it's Independence Day coming up next week, in the year 1779, America's Independence Day was actually celebrated on July 5th instead of July 4th. So why was that? So we celebrated on July 5th in 1779. Why was that decision made by our early government leaders? The number is 252-561-8255. Again, if you remember, if anyone in your immediate family have recently won, allow 60 days to pass before you play again. Do we have any callers, Clark? Again, 252-561-8255. In the year 1779, America's Independence Day was actually celebrated on July 5th instead of July 4th. Why is that? Who we got, Clark? Ray. Okay, Ray, did you hear the question?
I did.
What you got for me?
I'll give it a shot because it was a Sunday.
Uh-huh. Because it was a Sunday, they decided to celebrate on July 5th. You are exactly right. That's a quick one. Good job.
That was a lucky guess.
Did you Google that, or you look on the calendar, Ray?
No, I guessed it, because I knew they were very religious back then.
That's right. I don't think that would happen today either. That's correct.
Promise it would.
Hey, good job, Ray. It fell on Sunday, so they decided to celebrate on the 5th. Hey, we got to take a break, and Ray is our winner, and we will be right back in just a minute.
Another rock and roll weekend.
Burgers, better with Pepsi.
What do you see when you imagine life on the coast? Is it salty or sweet? Is it refined or a bit wild? Perhaps it's the perfect combination of everything you ever dreamed of. This is the very best of the best of living on the coast. Bow Coast.
And we're on location at one of my favorite places in the whole planet because this is some of the best food you're ever going to eat in your life. We are at Nino's on Red Banks Road in Greenville. It's one of my hangouts. It's one of the places that I love. I got my friend Pietro Pasalacqua. How'd I do?
You did great.
Let's talk about the food. What makes this place? I know it's special Italian from authentic Italians, but tell us why it's so special.
Because everything we do, it's really what we came up on the menu from what we did at home, from my grandparents, my parents. So it's exactly what we eat at home, and that's what the way we cook. That's why it's special.
And the atmosphere in this place is special also. From the bar to the two dining areas, you got two different dining areas, and now the weather's nice, so there's going to be a lot of folks that want to eat outside.
Yeah, we have two rooms. One room is designed a little different. We're also working on the patio to make it more attractive and more useful in the summer with the cocktail service. And we're always improving our services.
And, of course, my friends here, my buddy, Chef Massimo, who I love, and Sal and Pietro, you guys do a great job here. Not just Italian, but I had a great pork chop here the other night. You got great steaks, too.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we're also adding filet mignon in the future on our menu. And Massimo is coming out with a really good side dishes for it. And so we're really excited to come out with new meats and fish dishes.
All right, Nino's on Red Banks Road in Greenville, same people that
Back to news and views. Talk 96.3 and 103.7.
Welcome back to News and Views. Congratulations to Ray for winning our political trivia today. That was, first question out of the gate and first caller out of the gate, and he gets it right. Good job, Ray. And look, before we leave, also thank you again for Charlie Hurt, Washington Times opinion editor and Fox News contributor for coming on the show today. It was great piece he did in the Washington Times. If you get a chance to take a look at it. As we leave today, being our last day before 4th of July, I like to say Independence Day. I like to tell people Happy Independence Day because we've got to remember why we're having the day off and why we're celebrating and that type of thing. And, you know, we were a nation founded by imperfect men and women looking to form a more perfect union, and only with divine providence did we even create this nation, and we now are trying to, with divine providence, keep this nation going. I'll leave you today with from John Adams' letters to his wife Abigail Adams. If you ever get a chance to read the John Adams book by David McCullough, it's got a lot of letters in there he wrote to Thomas Jefferson as well as his wife Abigail Adams. And this is what John Adams said about Independence Day. He said, Independence Day will be the most memorable epocha in the history of America. I'm apt to believe that it will be celebrated by succeeding generations at a greatest anniversary festival. It ought to be commemorated as the day of deliverance by solemn acts of a devotion to God Almighty. It ought to be with pomp and parade, with shoes, games, sports, guns, bells, bonfires, and illuminations from one end of the continent to the other from this time forward. You will think me transported with enthusiasm, but I am not. I am well aware of the toil and the blood and treasure that it will cost us to maintain this declaration and support and defend these states. Yet through all the gloom, I see the rays of lavishing light and glory. I see that end is more than worth all the means, and that posterity will Posterity will triumph in the day's transaction, even although we should rue it, which I trust in God we shall not. So as we celebrate this weekend and this next week with our friends, just remember the blood and treasure of our founding fathers and those that have defended this great nation since that time, and celebrate Independence Day. Just don't celebrate another day off. Hey, we've got tomorrow off, and Monday we will be back on Tuesday with News and Views. Have a good weekend, and happy Independence Day, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Burgers, better with Pepsi.
What do you see when you imagine life on the coast? Is it salty or sweet? Is it refined or a bit wild? Perhaps it's the perfect combination of everything you ever dreamed of. This is the very best of living on the coast. Bow Coast.
Another rock and roll weekend.
Burgers, better with Pepsi.